Emma sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the stack of papers in front of her. The words "petition for divorce" stared back at her like an unwelcome guest. She sighed deeply, running a hand through her disheveled hair. It wasn't supposed to end this way. They had been so happy once, laughing together, dreaming together, building a life side by side. But somewhere along the way, they had lost each other. The sound of keys jingling outside broke her thoughts. Her husband, Daniel, walked in, his face etched with exhaustion. He glanced at her briefly before heading toward the fridge. Neither spoke. Silence had become their default language these days. "Dinner?" he asked half-heartedly, holding up a carton of leftover Chinese food. "No," Emma replied curtly. "I'm not hungry." Daniel shrugged and began reheating the food in the microwave. The hum of the appliance filled the room, underscoring the emptiness between them. Emma looked away, unable to bear the sight of him anymore. How could two people who loved each other so fiercely now feel like strangers? The next morning, Emma decided to take a walk to clear her head. She wandered aimlessly until she found herself standing in front of a small cafe she used to frequent with Daniel when they were first dating. Memories flooded back, the laughter over spilled coffee, the shy glances across the table, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his dreams. She felt a pang of longing, but quickly shook it off. Those days were gone. As she turned to leave, something caught her eye, a bulletin board near the entrance covered in flyers and notes. One particular note stood out. "Lost, a silver bracelet engraved with 'Forever Yours.' If found, please return to Clara." Emma frowned. The bracelet sounded familiar. In fact, she realized with a start, it belonged to her. She hadn't seen it in years, assuming it was lost forever after one of their many moves. But how did someone else have it? And why were they trying to find its owner? Curiosity got the better of her. She pushed open the door of the cafe and approached the counter where a young woman with curly red hair was serving customers. "Excuse me," Emma said hesitantly. "I saw your notice about the bracelet." The woman smiled warmly. "Oh, are you Clara?" "No, but I think that bracelet might belong to me." The woman's eyes widened. "Really? Can you describe it?" "It's silver, delicate, with 'Forever Yours' engraved on the inside," Emma explained. My husband gave it to me years ago." The woman nodded eagerly. "That's it. Someone dropped it off here last week." "Hold on, I'll go get it." A few moments later, she returned with a small velvet pouch. Inside was the bracelet, just as Emma remembered it. Tears welled up in her eyes as she held it in her palm. It felt heavier than she remembered, as if carrying all the weight of the promises they'd made to each other. "Thank you," Emma whispered, clutching the bracelet tightly. "You have no idea what this means to me." That evening, Emma placed the bracelet on the dining table, waiting for Daniel to come home. When he finally walked in, she gestured for him to sit down. "What's this?" he asked, picking up the bracelet. "It's mine," Emma said softly. "Or rather, it was ours. Do you remember giving it to me?" Daniel's expression softened. "Of course I do. Our 5th anniversary. You said it was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever given you." "And it was," Emma admitted. "But I haven't seen it in years. I thought it was lost." He looked at her curiously. "Where did you find it?" "At a cafe downtown. Someone found it and tried to return it to the owner." Reading that note, it made me realize something. "What's that?" "That we've both been looking for something we already had," Emma said, her voice trembling. "We've spent so much time being angry and distant that we forgot what brought us here in the first place. This bracelet reminded me of the love we shared, the kind of love that doesn't just disappear because things get hard." Daniel stared at her, his own emotions bubbling to the surface. "I miss you, he confessed. "I miss us." Tears streamed down Emma's face as she reached for his hand. "Me too. I don't want to lose you, Dan." "Not again." For the first time in months, they embraced, holding onto each other as if afraid to let go. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. They still had wounds to heal and trust to rebuild, but they were willing to try. Together. Later that night, as Emma lay in bed with Daniel's arms wrapped around her, she clasped the bracelet back onto her wrist. Its cool metal gleamed in the moonlight, a symbol of hope and second chances. Lost and found love. It was messy, imperfect, and achingly human, but it was theirs. And for now, that was enough. The end.